Well, hello and welcome to the Farmington Public Schools first spotlight of the 2022-2023 school year. So my name is Chris Delgado. I have the honor of being your proud superintendent here of Farmington Public Schools. And on the screen with me today, we have the highlights of our spotlight. We have our wonderful teacher, Mrs. Shauna Sadler, English teacher currently at Farmington High School. And we have a student who doesn't look much like a student right now, but he was one of Mrs. Sadler's students a long time ago. We have Dr. Umar Ahmed, who is joining us, and we have a very special story to bring to you in our September edition of the Farmington Public Schools Spotlight. So with that, let me turn it over to Mrs. Sadler. Can you tell us how you came to reconnect with your former student who is on the screen with us today?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And hello, everyone. Reconnect is the perfect word because usually as a teacher, you don't get an opportunity to reconnect. It's typically, have a great life and, I'll see you when I see you. But on this particular occasion, it was in the summer, so I wasn't teaching, and my mom, she became ill, so I received a phone call from my sister to come quick. So I drove down to the west side of the state, and my mom was in the hospital. And so we had to stay overnight. And to make a long story short, I was in the intensive care with my mom with a mask on. It was the height of COVID. And Dr. Ahmed, he recognized maybe me, my name, I'm not sure. And he said, you were my English ninth grade teacher. And I said, oh my God, so that's how I reconnected with Dr. Ahmed so many, many, many years ago. Yeah.
And my understanding is this was back at Harrison High School. Is that right?
Absolutely, Harrison High School. He
So
doesn't look how he used to look, so it took me a while to connect his face with my memory because, as a teacher, you fossilize the child's face.
Sure.
That is what you're left with. And so to see the grown man or the grown woman, it takes a minute for that child's face to come back to you. And it did eventually.
So, Dr. Ahmed, did you recognize Mrs. Sadler like immediately, or when did it dawn on you that, oh my goodness, this was my ninth grade English teacher?
Yeah, it was actually pretty immediate. When I initially, in the morning, we print out our patient list and I saw, your family member's name on there. I saw the last name and I was like, that's odd. I know someone with that last name back in, a long time ago. But I just kind of chalked it up to just coincidence and, it was whatever. And then I remember I was in the room and, speaking with your family member, and then Miss Sadler walked in, and I'd say I recognized her absolutely immediately. But then the question was, when should I let you know that I do know you? And, I waited after the initial period passed, and as I was leaving, I let her know. And it was really heartwarming, I think, over a reunion to let her know that you were my high school English teacher back in high school. And, despite the circumstances, it was certainly nice to see you again.
Yeah. And it was so funny because I remember I was sitting there with my phone because the night before I definitely had notes that I wrote to ask the doctors, because they were going to do their rounds. And so, I felt, oh my gosh, here's teacher Shauna again, with my notes. So I have a question. And so I said to myself, of all places and circumstances, here I am with my notes. Excuse me, I have a question and follow-up questions.
So let's go back down memory lane a little bit and let me see. Maybe I'll start with Dr. Ahmed. What do you remember about that ninth grade English class and your teacher, Mrs. Sadler? What sticks in your mind?
I definitely remember a lot, but I think the main things that really stick out are, and I'm not just saying this to flatter you, but Miss Adler was an absolutely fantastic English teacher. I think I grew a lot during that ninth grade English class. I vividly remember we were going through Shakespeare, and it was a very difficult, initial exposure to the world of Shakespeare. And she really encouraged, open participation and being able to express our ideas. I think we also read the book Night by Eli Wiesel, I believe. So, I do remember a lot, and I have quite fond memories of having Miss Sadler in ninth grade. I think I went on to have Miss Sadler again in either 10th or 11th grade as well.
Great memory.
And what do you remember, Mrs. Adler, about your student, Umar?
Umar, you were my class of 2016, is that correct?
Class of 2010. It was even further.
Even further, wow,
Yeah.
even further.
Long
But
time ago.
yeah, Umar was in my honors English 9 class, and right, Umar, it was honors,
Yeah.
right? And they were close to my heart. I think I had just started teaching, maybe 10 years in, and it was just a joy to see the responsibility, the energy, the interest, if you will, for Umar to sit here and to tell you that he remembers reading, Romeo and Juliet and the complexities of it and night. It's not about that you actually remember line for line. It's about, do you remember those conversations and life lessons and empathy, and so to me that's what literature is truly all about in an English class. And even that you remember open participation, Umar, I was always about that, up there with my notebook, keeping track of participants versus not, because I really encouraged open conversation, to speak your truth. And I remember Umar was shy, I believe, at the beginning. Yeah, he was shy. And but I think eventually kids warmed up to me, warmed up to each other, to the environment, and I think we became pretty close. In terms of, it was not a distant relationship; it was actually quite lovely. And sometimes I miss that. Because I don't know, some of your classes, they stay with you and they touch your heart, the kids, and then other classes it's a bit more. Not as close. But Umar's class, I remember them fondly. And so it's just, sorry?
And so many of us in education, we know that there's kind of this delayed or delayed gratification, is we don't really know the possible impact or influence that we have on a child's life. And every once in a while we're blessed to bump into somebody or hear back from somebody who really kind of appreciate it, and it makes us proud to see that they've moved on in the world to really contribute in a meaningful way. So
if I may, for Umar, thank you so much for your compliment, but that means a lot, because I think in the moment sometimes teachers, we don't realize that that's how kids feel. And so we kind of feel perhaps there's more of a criticism there, because we are an authority figure and we're always giving instruction and direction. So, although, far removed, I really appreciate your compliment and your words, because it just lets me know that perhaps, how I think kids feel is perhaps not how they do feel in the moment.
And I really want to kind of hang on to the open participation, that kind of Socratic seminar, that active engagement that allows what we're calling now positioning, of how you position your classroom to not allow anybody to hide in the background, or for that shy student or that maybe a little bit reserved student to be in a culture, in a safe culture, be kind of forced to participate and encouraged to participate, to really pull out meaning from not only the curriculum, but with collaboration with the other students. So that's a wonderful way to teach, and it's wonderful that all these years later that was one of the things that Dr. Ahmed remembered about that. So go ahead, Dr. Ahmed. Yeah.
No, yeah, I was just going to say absolutely. I was certainly shy and hesitant to participate initially, and I talk about the growth that I experienced throughout high school, specifically that class, and the importance that was placed upon open participation really helped me grow and be able to express my ideas more appropriately, and I think more succinctly as well. And I just want to say, from a teacher evaluation standpoint, and I think that's very fair of you to say that there's a lot of criticism being an authority figure. I'm not the only one who thinks that you were a fantastic English teacher. I can firmly and confidently say that was the general consensus, that Miss Adler was one of the best English teachers that we had. Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's high praise. That's wonderful.
It is.
Well, Dr. Ahmed, I'm sure that our viewers are interested. So you grew up from this 9th grade English student. You grew up, you chose to become a doctor. Can you talk to us about what kind of doctor are you, and why did you decide that field?
Yeah. So I'm currently an internal medicine resident physician. So, I went to Wayne State for undergrad, went to Western Michigan Kalamazoo for medical school, and now I'm at Spectrum in Grand Rapids for internal medicine residency. So I got my bachelor's degree, I have my medical doctorate. I graduated from medical school, and now I'm training to become an independent practicing physician. As far as why I chose medicine, I think it kind of gave me everything that I had enjoyed, through high school and through undergrad. I was able to really practice and apply the sciences that I had enjoyed, whether it was physics or chemistry or biology. But it also allows for some degree of teaching as well. And I think, during my time in high school, I was quite inspired by Miss Sadler and all the various teachers that I had the opportunity to learn from. So during my undergraduate years, I really worked with, students as far as teaching MCAT, ACT, and SAT. Worked in various Detroit schools as well. So medicine, I think, really allows for that the continuation of education as well. Whether you're working with medical students or residents or fellows, it really allows for lifelong education, lifelong learning, and also gives you that teaching role as well.
And that's wonderful with some of the, especially in Metro Detroit and Wayne State and other areas where there are teaching hospitals where you're actually able to kind of partner and teach a younger generation and have the internships as well. So one of the questions I'm really interested to hear from you from an educational standpoint is, there are students who maybe are sitting in a ninth grade English class right now. Maybe they don't know what they want to be when they grow up, but maybe they think someday I'd like to be a doctor. What recommendations might you have for kind of the type of academic classes they should take, or opportunities for them to have exposure to the medical field and try to find out whether it might be the path that they'd like to follow?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. As far as what academic classes to take and what kind of exposures in the academic setting, I think it's pretty open. I think it's more so about exploring the subjects and the subject matter that really interests each individual. Especially when you're in undergrad and you're applying to medical school, everyone tells you that it doesn't matter what your major is. It doesn't matter if you do a biology major or chemistry or a social science major or what have you. It's more so about doing something that you're very passionate about, because that's when you'll get the best results and you'll be able to learn and take things with you and keep things with you moving forward. As far as, exposure to the medical setting, I think, for students who are in high school, around that age range, starting off with whether it's shadowing, if you happen to know somebody who's in the medical field and asking to shadow them. Otherwise, volunteering in hospitals is a good way of getting involved as well. And then as you kind of progress and get into the undergrad arena, you can start with, jobs, whether it's in the research setting or whether it's working as a scribe. And those are really a lot of the things that I did during my high school and undergrad years.
That's wonderful advice, and I know that we have many, individuals watching who would want to share this with their children as well. So we appreciate that insight. And then finally, just to Mrs. Sadler, I know that both of our high schools we have the EMT, our Emergency Medical Technician program, that gives a little kind of taste of the medical field. I don't know to what extent there's kind of cross-curricular involvement with the English classes, but when you think about your students that are currently with you, and the connections they could maybe make to the EMT or other career focus areas. How are you able to kind of weave in literature or English into the pursuit or exposure to other careers? Is that something that you're able to do within your curriculum?
Well, one of the things, since I'm teaching juniors, and that's such a pivotal year, I do reach out to the counseling department because they're the experts, and I bring them into my classroom because I think sometimes kids simply don't know. So I bring the experts into my classroom. I stop my teaching, my literature for even a day or so, and I have kids, just, ask questions, ask a ton of questions. What's out there, outside of the classroom, community relations, what are things that I can do? What are classes that I can take that will prepare me, for the workforce, with experience? Are there classes I can take at the community college, where can I work for volunteer hours? So I have the counselors definitely come in to have that very important conversation with students. When it comes to literature, not all of my students want to be published writers.
Right.
Right, and I understand that most definitely, but what I do stress is that wherever you land, strong communication skills are very important in terms of your speaking, right? In terms of your body demeanor, your body language, in terms of your vocabulary, your expressions, in terms of complexity of thoughts and ideas, if you will, in terms of knowing your audience, in terms of appealing to your audience, So all of these things are certainly intertwined. And I have that conversation with kids that this is not just a literature-based class. Yes, that is a tool that we are using. That's what we are talking about, to have those conversations. But you also have to look at the skill set that you're learning apart from, the content, if you will. Look outside of the content. So what are the skills years later when you are in Dr. Umar's position? Not that I'm going to credit myself completely, but it starts with, formal education. No, it starts with the home, actually, with parents and siblings. And then, of course, we come into the mix, because I strongly believe that parents are the first teachers. Parents are the first teachers with those very pivotal years. And then formal educators, such as myself, we come into the mix and we try to refine those things for an outside audience, because of course we love our kids with our hearts. And so all we see is nothing but beauty. But then, we come into the mix to really try to refine our students for the public world, for the outside world. And so kids need to have that confidence. And Dr. Umar, thank you for hitting on that although you were quiet then, me and my insistence that, all my students participate, even if you're shy, she's going to stand there and call on me. So you know what, sooner or later, I have to take that leap of faith that, I can do this, right? So that as the future doctor, or the future superintendent, or the future teacher, whatever, you have that, because we live with the children who we used to be. We carry them with us, right? And so we want that child, within ourselves to know that, what, this is who I used to be, but look how I have grown, and look at the journey that I have taken, right, to become this person, this adult figure who stands in front of me. So to answer your question in a nutshell, teachers are very important, because I think they really help kids to realize that they have that potential, that they have the ingredients that they already need, and we are just there to push them just a little bit every single day until, they're able to take that baton and run on their own, because we don't want to keep holding their hand, right? Eventually, we want them to let go and someday, pass it forward, just like Dr. Ahmed did for me.
I agree. Well, very well said. And, and whether it's through a presentation or written correspondence, understanding how to communicate in an effective manner, those are some of the important skills that obviously literally a bedside manner that a physician would need to have to talk to families, to talk to patients. That's something that you start practicing when you're in high school and beyond. So I have one final question. Speaking of literature and speaking of English class, to Dr. Ahmed. So why are doctor signatures so messy? And what can we do about that?
I think that's a good question. I think in today's day and age, moving more towards the electronic EMR and electronic prescriptions, hopefully that issue dies out a little bit.
Maybe that helps with the illegibility. I didn't know if there was a secret doctor code that doctors and pharmacists knew that we didn't learn, that you learn in grad school, but I'm pleased to hear we're working to remedy that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. If there is a secret, I haven't learned it yet, so I'll let you know if I come across it.
Well, I just want to say thank you to both of you. This is such a heartwarming story, and Dr. Ahmed, we are proud of you as a Harrison Hawk and a former graduate, and glad you stayed in Michigan to support our families and support medical care and healthy living here in Michigan. So we appreciate both of you for your time, for your connection, and for sharing your story with our community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.